Hey y'all, it's good to see you again. Today I'm going to review Final Fantasy 15. This is really cool for me because I've never gotten to talk about my own opinions for FF15 really. I did a video with Final Fantasy Peasant where it was kind of like still early on after I'd beaten the game, so I've had a lot of time to really think about the game mechanics, the story, the characters, the music. So this is a video of me talking about those things. Hope you enjoy it and have fun watching my video. 10 years ago, at E3, Square Enix announced a game called Final Fantasy Versus 13. Its trailer blew the minds of many Final Fantasy fans. It was mysterious and extremely dark. It showed the main character, Noctis, fighting a squad of soldiers at the foot of a massive building. I remember watching this trailer and being amazed. I mean, Noct stabs a guy and a bunch of blood comes out. When I saw that, I was like, what? More trailers eventually came out showing off the combat system. This game was being developed by the same team that made Kingdom Hearts. The gameplay was very similar. It even had that really floaty looking combat straight out of Kingdom Hearts 1. Seeing all of this got me so hyped. Over the years, Versus 13 would disappear and reappear, leaving fans to question whether or not it was cancelled. All hope seemed lost until...
これが対をなす幻想。
いや、世界は常に変化する。15番目だ。
So yeah, Versus 13 became Final Fantasy 15, the next mainline Final Fantasy game. At this point, it kind of had to. I feel like if this game was still Versus 13, it probably would have never come out. Guys, I was a completely different person when this game was announced. It's so crazy to think about. Now I'm like 38 and I could finally play it. For a Final Fantasy game, the story is pretty simple. You play as Noctis, Prince of Lucis. Your objective is to fulfill a peace treaty between two warring continents, Lucis and Accordo, which is currently ruled by the Niflheim Empire. One of the conditions of the peace treaty is for Noctis to marry his childhood friend, Luna Freya. Luna, a former princess of Tenebrae, another land conquered by Niflheim, has been held captive for over 12 years. Obviously, things don't go according to plan. Niflheim lies and invades the capital city of Lucis, Insomnia, and end up killing Noctis' father, King Regis, and pretty much destroying the city. With no home to return to, Noctis pushes onward with his royal retinue in tow to find Luna and try to figure out what to do next. Sounds pretty epic, doesn't it? But honestly, I'll say this right now, FF15's story feels incomplete. Characters get introduced, then disappear, or don't get fleshed out enough, or die and then come back to life later. Like seriously, this character, Loki, he's like, "Stop right there, criminal scum." And then he blows up inside of his Magitech armor. Like, there's nothing left. No wreckage, no nothing. And then he's just back later in the exact same Magitech armor. Like, "You thought you could get away, criminal scum." But you blow him up again, and then I guess he stays dead. But yeah, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, FF15's story feels incomplete. But what we actually got is pretty awesome. The story is super emotional and had me crying during more than one scene. By the end of the game, the four main characters felt like my best buddies. Your main party, Prompto, Ignis, and Gladio, are all well written. They feel like real people. They joke around and have goofy nicknames for one another, and even fight with each other. Those scenes make me really sad. It's also worth mentioning that the voice acting in this game is freaking great. All of the main characters are delivered wonderfully. Ray Chase as Noctis does a really great job of tying the player to the character in very relatable ways. And Darren DePaul as Arden Azunia is absolutely haunting. The trailers for FF15 showed some really cool looking stuff that actually didn't end up making it into the game. As you play through the game, there are a few moments that feel kind of awkward with characters leaving the party for no good reason, clearly setting up DLC, or you'll find text files explaining what's going on instead of just showing it in a cutscene. I should also mention that Square Enix are actually working on brand new, free cutscenes that will be available sometime in the future. The new cutscenes plan on explaining character motivations in greater detail and fleshing out the story more. There's actually a movie that goes along with Final Fantasy XV called Kingsglaive. Kingsglaive shows some of the events that happen off-screen during FF15's story. You should definitely watch this movie before playing the game. The deluxe edition of the game actually comes with the movie. FF15 doesn't have many cutscenes in the early game and chooses to tell its story through gameplay. Characters will talk about current events while driving and listening to the car radio. I thought it was really strange how Square actually put some of the scenes from Kingsglaive in FF15. It's kind of jarring going from in-game cinematics to all of a sudden seeing an extremely high-resolution scene out of nowhere. Although the story doesn't feel complete, the game actually does wrap up its more important story bits by the end of the game. You can argue that the reason we don't see certain things is because this is Noctis' story. You mainly experience the game from Noctis' perspective. For me, the ending was very satisfying and gave me a sense of completion. I'd even say FF15 has one of my favorite endings in Final Fantasy history. It's so good. Don't worry guys, they didn't pull a FF13 too with this game. For me, the biggest downside is that this game is pretty short. You could clock it around 20 hours. That's insane for a JRPG. A lot of fans, myself included, don't like this. I agree that this game's main story should have been much longer. Most of your game time will be optional dungeons and side quests. With that said, let's move on to the gameplay. When you first boot up FF15, a message will appear. A Final Fantasy for fans and first-timers. I don't think so. Most of the people I've spoken to about this game that have only played the originals don't really like it. I think most people have to understand that mainline Final Fantasy is probably never going to be turn-based ever again. As much as I would like that to be, it'll probably never happen, especially since FF15 is selling like hotcakes. Square is more likely to stick with what makes money. FF15 is still a great game that I had plenty of fun with. Final Fantasy XV is an open-world, real-time action RPG. Imagine Kingdom Hearts, but open-world with tighter controls and much faster gameplay. While exploring out in the field, you'll stumble across enemies. Once an enemy spots you, a bar will show overhead. This is the threat meter. Once it's filled, the battle begins and a combat area is set into place. You can see the combat area on your minimap displayed usually as a red ring. To flee, simply leave the combat area. Noctis can use many different types of weapons, including straight swords, great swords, spears, daggers, and guns, which all have their own movesets and combos. Your party members can only use specific weapons. For example, Prompto can only use guns. You could switch weapons whenever you want during combat. You could even pause the game mid-battle to change your equipment, which is great, by the way. There were a few battles where I started with the wrong spell and had to switch because the enemies absorbed my spell, recovering their HP. Your main form of attack is stringing together a combo of physical attacks. This is your Blitz combo. You do this by holding down the circle button. It may seem very simple, but once you get the hang of the combat system, it becomes much deeper, with more directional input with the left stick to perform different attacks in your combo. Just like attacking, guarding plays a big role in combat too. To perform a guard, you simply have to hold down the square button. Guarding uses MP. If you guard at a precise moment, Noctis will literally phase through enemy attacks, not spending any MP in the process. It's key to learn positioning and to get to know your enemy's movement patterns. Maneuvering around them and attacking their blind sides will make short work of them. Noctis can also use a skill called Elemancy. Throughout the world, you'll find magical ore deposits in which you could absorb certain types of magic. Think of these as draw points from FF8. Once you have enough magic energy stored up, you could freely craft spells of varying potency. If you mix a spell with items you find, you could even create different types of spells. For example, if you mix a high potion with a fire spell, you'll be healed once you cast the spell. I had a lot of fun experimenting and coming up with new spell concoctions. The Ascension grid reminds me of the Sphere grid from Final Fantasy X. On this upgrade screen, you use AP earned from leveling up to access new skills and increase certain stats, like HP, MP, strength, and magical damage. There are also unlockable skills that allow you to earn AP from things like camping, driving, fishing, and other non-combat associated activities. To level up, you have to sleep at a camp or a hotel. This tallies your experience you earned that day. You can also have Ignis cook dinner for the party to receive stat buffs and status resistances in the morning. This game's quests are broken up into 4 different types: main quests, side quests, hunts, and tour quests. The tour quests are my favorite. They're usually more comical and show you what Noctis and friends are doing outside of combat. There's a really great one where a chocobo steals Ignis's glasses. This game's open world is huge, and you have access to it almost from the start of the game. I don't usually like open world games. They feel very overwhelming, but FF15 is more inviting. What's that? You don't want to drive halfway across the country to help your friend catch frogs for her science experiment? Don't worry, your boy Ignis will drive. You just sit back and relax. And listen to some FF7 music. I must admit, the side quests in this game aren't super fun. It's mostly just busy work and fetch quests. It's sad because most of these quest givers start out interesting and seem like they'll have more to do with the overall story. Spoiler alert, they don't. Let's take a look at Dave. He's the head of the Hunters Guild. His quests are about finding dog tags of fallen hunters out in the field. This could have been great. Like maybe we'd get to learn about the hunters whose tags we find? Nope. Just bring it back to Dave and he'll mumble the same thing over and over again with his ASMR voice. Don't worry, Dave, I feel ya. There are also a few ways you'll be traveling across Eos. You can drive the Regalia, you could ride on a chocobo, which is always fun. I want to ride my chocobo all day. Sorry. Or, now check this out, guys. You can fly. That's right, at a certain point you can upgrade your car to fly. How awesome is that? The bosses in this game are massive and usually fun to fight. I have to admit, guys, there's a boss fight against a giant dragon thing that was really confusing for me. The controls and gameplay you've learned up to that point drastically change. Besides that fight, I had fun with all the other bosses. Some of the bosses are this world's astrals, this game's version of the summons from past FF games. Once you defeat them, they'll agree to help you in your journey. The way summons work in this game is actually really confusing. See, you can't summon them from a menu, they kind of do their own thing. If your entire party is down, and you don't have any potions to heal with, an astral may come to help you. It's random. Hopefully this gets patched or something later on. You could also equip Noctis and friends in different outfits which affect gameplay differently. It's more your stats that get affected though. Equipping different weapons also affects your stats too. I was kind of surprised to see cosmetic car customization in this game, being that it's like your 5th party member. Your car's paint job, wheel color, and interior can be customized with a lot of different colors. That's kinda cool if you like that stuff. It reminded me of playing GTA. Most of the game, you'll be driving around Eos. I know this sounds so boring. The game does a good job with keeping you occupied during your drive though. Prompto is actually an aspiring photographer. If he sees a cool landmark while driving, he'll ask you if you want to take a group photo in front of said landmark. If you drive at night, a lot of demons will also attack you, which is pretty scary. You can also shop from your car. I don't know how the items get to you, but, you know, magic, I guess. During your travels through the game, you'll come across amazing sights accompanied with great music. With that being said, let's talk about this game's presentation. Of course, FF15's graphics are amazing. Of course, the music is amazing. Yoko Shimomura has done it again. To Square Enix, graphics are more important than life itself. The environments are great looking. FF15 goes for a more realistic look to its graphics. The character models are good looking too. The outfits and hair are super detailed. This being an open world game, glitches and bugs are bound to show up. I myself didn't get many bugs in my game, but the proof is out there. For me, sometimes Gladio's hair wouldn't load in properly. It looked like he had a pile of pixels on his head. It's pretty amazing that some of the musical tracks in FF15 are over 10 years old. Songs like Somnus and Amis Lacrima showed up all the way back in the Versus 13 trailers. I'm really glad they kept those 2 pieces of music in the game. Some of my favorite tracks are Hellfire, Noctis' theme, and probably my new favorite FF battle theme of all time, Up for the Challenge. That track gets me so hyped when fighting monsters. Like I said earlier, FF15 doesn't actually have many cutscenes. This has sparked a debate within the Final Fantasy fan community on whether or not it's better to have a more open gameplay experience over a more linear, story-centered experience. You can either have an entire world to explore that's beautifully detailed, but sacrifice clarity in your story, or you can have a tighter game world with average-looking graphics, but have a greatly detailed story. Where do I side in this argument? Well, I was actually a huge fan of Final Fantasy XIII, so I'd much rather have a version of Final Fantasy XV that had a tighter, more open-ended linear world with a richer story. Give me a linear game over an open-world game any day. I love games that have very strong stories. I really enjoyed FF15's story a lot, but it felt empty in more than one place. What it lacked in story, it made up for an excellent, addictive gameplay. I give Final Fantasy XV a 4 out of 5. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed my video. Sounds like the boys are at it again. I'll see you next time, guys.
Prompto, wake up! Yes, sir.
Hey, this is Ray Chase. I play Noctis Lucis Kylum in Final Fantasy XV. I just want to say like and subscribe to Sue Lightning, because she's awesome.